Greetings and salutations, everyone. I know it's been a while. Please excuse me for my absence, but this is FireSide Chat number 6. And coming off of Amanda Nunes's retirement, we have not done a Fireside Chat since Pena vs. Nunez 2. So, welcome us back. And by us, I mean we, the Fireside Chat, which is including you guys, whoever's watching, however many people, maybe it's your pet dog. But without further ado, let's get started breaking down UFC on ABC 5, Emmett versus Topuria. A super long card, 14 fights. Unreal. So how many are going to get dropped before Friday? Let's see. Let's see where the action is. And that's where it gets dropped. Anyways, fight number 1 is Cody Brundage versus Cedric Dumas. Cody Brundage has had several UFC fights now. He's fought the better competition, by far. We know his strengths and weaknesses. He has great punching power, finishing ability, either whether it's on the mat or standing. He has strength in every position in basically the 1.5 rounds that he has a gas tank. Cedric Dumas has a great jab. He's a quick precision striker, and he has an ability to scramble. Now, both of these are fairly young fighters. Brundage does have slight experience, as I mentioned, and because of that, my conclusion on this fight will most likely be an under 1.5 rounds, if that's where it is laid, and most likely a Cody Brundage knockout or submission in the first round. Dumas can find an ability to find Brundage, which is why I do not want to pick a side, especially if Brundage is more of a favorite than he used to be. Let's see where he's at now. It still says minus 125. I don't know if that's the correct number. It could be as high as minus 200. That's kind of crazy. So depending on where this might parlay a violence, just straight fight doesn't go the distance, with another fight doesn't go the distance. And maybe we're looking at a fight further up the card, maybe our 4th fight, to parlay that with and see how we feel. I've not looked at the numbers. These are just flowing thoughts of mine. So Cody Brundage by finish, under 1.5. Second fight, Topuria versus Clayton Rodriguez. Probably my favorite fight on the card. You have 2 extremely skilled fighters, young, in their prime, only it's buried in a 3-round undercard fight where who knows what will happen. Topuria has faced a myriad of competition in Japan, and now they're easing him into the U.S. competition. My only knock with him is that he has not really faced a seasoned striker with finishing ability that will not wilt to his grappling. Is that going to be Clayton Rodriguez? I do think Rodriguez holds some advantages over Tyra, probably in finishing ability on the feet, and also his ability to potentially match Tyra in the grappling department, at least in the first 1.5 rounds where he could find that finish. Because I feel if this fight goes long, Tyra will find the back, gain the control. It only takes a moment for Rodriguez to mess up and get submitted there, or just lose on control. So, but tape study, I do not like the competition that Tyra has faced. He's faced no one with the striking or ability to hit people on the feet like Clayton is. As long as Clayton resists his grappling and forces him to strike, I can see Rodriguez winning this by a decision, by outstriking Tyra, or a late finish. However, the most likely outcome is Tyra via grappling control. Fight number 3. Jamal Emmers, Jack Jenkins. Great fight. This card actually has a lot of fun matchups. The first 3 fights now, very fun. Excuse me. Jamal Emmers does a lot of things well. He's very calculated, patient. He looks for openings and does not get himself into too much danger. Now, in that regard, he's not necessarily the quickest striker. He does not have a ton of volume, and he can potentially be outpaced later in fights, especially if he is overloaded with volume or information. Jack Jenkins is that type of fighter. He is volume. He's essentially good everywhere. He has great calf kicks, and calf kicks are money in MMA right now. Because of this, Jack Jenkins can win the decision. On to the next one. Trevor Peek versus Chepe Mariscal. There is no way this fight goes to a decision. Between these two guys, there is plenty enough chaos for one of them to finish the other. Trevor Peek has insane punching power, insane will to get through a fight, to impose his own. Chepe Mariscal does several things well, if not most things well. He is a decorated, in terms of credentialed athlete coming into this. I believe he's anywhere from kickboxing to Brazilian type grappling champion. He has it on paper. However, his record does not show that he has it. So he is someone to look out for and potentially be undervalued. Can he beat Trevor Peek? I'm not sure until Trevor Peek hits that intersection where his chin and durability can no longer match what his opponents are throwing at him. I don't see someone like Chepe Mariscal, Jose Mariscal, however you want to say it, necessarily beating him. Give it a few years, maybe they can. However, age is not on Mariscal's side. Size is not on Mariscal's side. Power is not. And that's where Trevor Peek does his work. I think the UFC wants a Trevor Peek to win. Is this too much too early? Because Mariscal is a veteran, and it is pretty good everywhere. However, he can't get finished. He does take punches. He has been finished by current UFC fighters before, such as Steve Garcia. It's a good test for Peek. It's a good test for Mariscal. But intelligence says to pick Peek by late first round, early second round finish. But that fight is not going the distance regardless. So I wonder what Dumas Brundage and Trevor Peek Mariscal, both fights to not go the distance combined. Might be minus 200, but could be worth looking at. Just something to consider. Zaga Zhimagulov versus Joshua Van. I like this fight too. However, it's Joshua Van's UFC debut. History tells us someone like Zhalgas is going to outpace him, and essentially take over after 1.5 rounds. Win the late second round, shows the impression on the judges, gets the round, wins the third round. Zhalgas by unanimous decision. Both do things fairly similarly. Zhalgas has the experience, and like many of you know, he could be 17-5 right now on a 3-fight win streak, something like that. So next fight, pretty interesting matchup wise, ladies fight, not necessarily the most fun fight to tape. Tabitha Ricci and Jillian Robertson. Tabitha Ricci has a really good double leg inside trip for takedowns. I could see her hitting that on Jillian Robertson multiple times. Robertson, of course, will try to play from her back, get up. But this will be all about stopping the takedowns from Ricci for Robertson or reversing her and finding her back, making her tired. Robertson should have the length and the size advantage here, dropping down to strawweight. Ricci, fairly basic striking. Really just likes to control position on the mat. Not a ton of finishing ability unless her opponent wants to get out of there. Viana put up a good fight against her, arguably won that fight. Because of that reason alone, I feel like Jillian Robertson will steal rounds, if not submit her, because her grappling is pretty good. And she's had some really tough matchups in the UFC. Even Priscilla Cachoeira, who she beat, she was getting hit on standing, and that's a really tough matchup, especially if Cachoeira short up her takedown defense. How does she win that fight? Anyways, I'm not going to rant too much. She got Piera Rodriguez out of there. Her strawweight, what I believe was debut. She beat Rose Namajunas in grappling. That says a decent amount, although I'm not sure Namajunas is the most seasoned competition grappler right now. She refuses to go to the mat in her past how many fights? Anyways, just loves her boxing, I guess. Tabitha Ricci, aside from Manon Fiorot, who we know is a great talent coming up, she has not been fighting too many ladies that are very threatening. Poliana Viana, of course, would be the most threatening. She, however, is just kind of a glass cannon, like Yolo. She just throws up things. She's not very calculated. But even she was getting the better of Tabitha Ricci on the feet. Tabitha Ricci was just awarded that because of top control. Even though she's throwing no strikes. She's defending submissions all fight. She's defending strikes off the back for Viana. And taking damage standing. I don't know. I gave Viana that decision. Anyways, I think Robertson can get this done here. Her size and technique. Mateusz Rebecki, Luke Radzabov. So these guys are identical in the sense that they both have pretty good boxing and they just throw power shots. All fight. And they don't stop. This is a crazy matchup. This fight could be a title fight in most other organizations, I feel. Like lesser organizations. These two just have not had time to really develop. Loic Radzabov is just a relentless grappler. He's going to look to hold on to Rebecki after he starts losing the striking to Rebecki's volume in the boxing. And that's really where this fight will be contested. And I think Rebecki's boxing will get it done. His ability to evade Radzabov's takedowns might just be a little bit too much. Could even see Rebecki getting a finish. The tape that I saw against Ribovic was starting to hit him clean late. And someone with the power over Rebecki. Not necessarily the finesse that Ribovic has had, but Rebecki is still precise and does have good boxing. So I'm looking forward to that one. Rebecki decision. 8, Randy Brown, Wellington Turman. Randy Brown got basically knocked out on the feet 4 months ago and then submitted by Jack Della Maddalena. And Wellington Turman is like this no-heart fighter dropping down to welterweight, trying to bully people for any advantage he can. Randy Brown should keep him at range, defend him along the fence, and win in volume. Turman's going to be a tank at this weight. It's hard to see him getting finished too much, but like Andre Petrosky, he just outworked and imposed his game. Brown can find his chin too. Wellington Turman has gone down to some strikes, and the loss of Carl Robertson is never a good look, just skill-wise. Randy Brown was set up to lose at JDM. I mean, straight up. This win against Chaos Williams, Francisco Trinaldo. Both those guys present their own problems in the fight. And Francisco Trinaldo is close enough matchup to Wellington Turman that it should be nothing that Randy Brown isn't ready for. So I like it. I like it here. I don't like the price, but I like this fight to at least go over 1.5. Then again, Randy Brown was knocked out 4 months ago, so that's Turman's win condition. It's hard to see him winning, just holding Brown down, or winning in volume and getting a decision that way. His path to victory's got to be a knockout here. So probably Brown better for the obvious reasons. More paths to victory. Better skilled fighter. Just kind of lacks some of that bruiser strength that gets him in trouble sometimes against heavier hitters, which could be a Turman. So, fight 9, Neil Magny versus Philip Rowe. I feel like this is Neil Magny versus his younger brother. Phil Rowe has a weakness on the mat, wrestling to someone like Magny who can match his length. Phil Rowe has nice hands. He does do some things very well. Magny is getting on the tail side of his career, but all he really does is lose to the best of the division. So, we're talking about Gilbert Burns, Shavkat. Chiesa is kind of a question mark, but there are ways you can beat Magny in the grappling if you hold that advantage of him there, which is something that Philip Rowe does not. So Philip Rowe is going to look to hurt Magny standing if he's going to win this. Otherwise, I'm thinking he's going to get outpaced by the veteran, probably clinch along the fence. This is most likely taking place in a small cage, so that's something else to keep in mind up and down the card for any pure wrestlers or just fighters that are unable to keep a pace, because the smaller cage forces a higher pace. There's not as much break in the action for resetting and this and that as you're circling around towards the center. You're basically forced to collide. But Neil Magny decision seems most likely scenario. But he has been getting hit a little more at this part of his career. You could see Rowe catching him. Most likely, though, Magny. Brendan Allen, Bruno Silva. They're just throwing Bruno Silva at pretty much anybody. I feel like this guy fights every 2 months. I know it's not true, but yeah, like in the past half year. I mean, let's just look at it. Fought in April and September before then, and then March before. So I mean, he's fighting twice a year. It's just me. I mean, finishing Brad Tavares is fairly difficult. He's shown a ton of durability, but that finish did not go without its faults. You can see Bruno Silva getting caught pretty often, and Brendan Allen is the type of guy, I think, to kind of catch him and maybe put him away on the mat with the submission, guillotine, something, just like Jerome Mearshart managed. I guess I see why the line is lined the way it is. It makes enough sense. Brendan Allen's pretty technical everywhere. He can get lazy in the middle of exchanges sometimes, and that's where Chris Curtis got him. And that's where Bruno Silva can catch him. Bruno Silva's, aside from Alex Pereira, I wouldn't say he's fought the better competition. Anyway, by any means, rather. Wellington Turman, look, he's everywhere. Andrew Sanchez, Jordan Wright, those guys are very bottom half of the UFC. Whereas, Brendan Allen's fighting top half development guys like Muniz, Jotko, who's a tough beat anywhere, and he finished him, finishing Jotko, who would go into popping steroids in the PFL, Jacob Malkoun, I didn't think he won that fight. It was a gift of a decision. Malkoun is a great fighter. Sam Alvey, the best fighter on the roster. Hopefully still rostered. He deserves it, But, there's Roberson again, who we beat by heel hook. So, Brendan Allen, I trust him not to get caught in this fight. He's evolving. And Bruno Silva, got cracked pretty hard by Tavares 2 months ago. These back-to-back type of fights just never seem to go well, unless you're special, like young and up-and-coming. And Bruno Silva's kind of like a fun action fighter, but cannon fodder for a lot of up-and-coming guys, more than likely, which is possible. And that's what I feel like the UFC's trying to do with Brendan Allen. Give him a win against an action guy who's going to come forward and he can finish him. It's a good win. And conversely, Bruno Silva getting a win over Brendan Allen is great. So it's really win-win here. Maybe this fight does finish inside the distance. Allen's shown pretty good this past few. I like what he's shown. He lost Malkoun. Let's be honest, though. Fight 11, just going straight down it. David Onama, Gabriel Santos. This is one of the harder ones to pick on the card. I don't know why Gabriel Santos is so much higher priced, or has such a higher price than the David Onama side. I mean, I know where Onama is green. Gabriel Santos, though, he does not have the experience. Split to Lerone Murphy, okay. That's fine. Pretty sure I bet against Lerone Murphy in that fight. Probably wasn't the best idea. But, it's been, it's been 10 months since his Nate Landwehr fight, where he learned a lot about his conditioning, what made him vulnerable. Before then, Garrett Armfeld, pretty decent fighter. I'm looking forward to his next fight. Gabriel Benitez gets finished. Mason Jones, tough fight for your debut. Mason Jones and Nate Landwehr, a lot alike. Gabriel Santos, though, does he have that tank to take him out? Or ability to catch him? I think maybe he does. He's pretty crazy. He's got some good stuff. This line is way too wide, but I will not be betting on David Onama. Although maybe we should. Maybe this is a split. So there goes a decision. On to the next. Justin Tafa versus Austin Lane. I really, really do not like either of these fighters. Tafa Tafa looks so lazy. He looks disinterested when he fights. He looks like he hates being there. His wins are against just terrible competition. And the same could be said of, like, Austin Lane. I mean, so when you look at Austin Lane, you see all these stoppages, right? And he just comes in there and he throws caution to the wind. There's just, like, his Richard Jacoby fight, he was just throwing down until he got him to the mat with, I believe, some strikes and finished him the ground and pound. And if he just comes after Justin Tafa like that, Tafa's just going to left hook him out cold. And it being his UFC debut, it's hard to bet on someone like Austin Lane against the Justin Tafa, who counter-strikes so well and is going to take that newbie aggression straight out of him. They both have wins over Juan Adams. What's crazy, though, is Justin Tafa was a plus 200 underdog against Juan Adams. That's just so crazy, man. I don't even remember when Juan Adams was favored. Ever. No offense. It's just a weird world we live in sometimes. Bookies are trying to trick you, remember that. Amanda Ribas, Macy Barber. How can you not bet Macy Barber by decision? She's who the UFC wants as a face for that division. Amanda Ribas is pretty basic, but good everywhere. She's getting better. Macy Barber is just going to be winging punches. And it's just going to be hat, back and forth. The whole fight, there will be a few grappling scrambles, and then Macy Barber will win by split decision, and everyone that was on Amanda Ribas will be angry. So there you go. All right, fight 14. Josh Emmett, Ilya Topuria. Amazing matchup, great main event. It's a good thing that this is 5 rounds. I think 3 rounds just wouldn't be enough, but maybe it would be. Because Josh Emmett is showing some unfortunate durability issues. I really like the guy. He's like one of the cool guys at featherweight. He's got sweet tattoos. And he used to knock some guys out. Now he just kind of plods around, throws a few leg kicks, refuses to wrestle, unless he's greatly losing the striking. But still has knockout power that Ilya Topuria can succumb to. It's just hard to imagine, given their career trajectories, where this surging younger Ilya Topuria is just sweeping through everyone, cracking everybody. And Emmett just got cracked in his last fight and choked out, right? Yep, triangle choke. He got cracked and choked out. He got beaten and choked. Expect the same here. If he's minus 335, he was just minus 300. Ilya Topuria the other night. I mean, you have to parlay him. You have to bet him by finish. Is Emmett just going to try and survive, like, play very passive and just win a split decision like he managed against Calvin Kattar? Just be very calculated, win on the visuals to the judges, maybe hit Topuria with some stuff, because Topuria can get hit. He has been hit. Chai Herbert had him. There's been moments. Yeah, this might be a good underfight. Topuria's first main event. He's going to be super hype. If he doesn't get Emmett out of there, he can maybe just fade and just eat a hard strike in round 3 and go down. Because you look up and down Topuria's record, he just says win against Yusuf Zalal. I haven't taped that. Was he beating him post to post? Maybe not his debut. He probably leaned heavy on his wrestling. I'm not sure he can do that against Emmett. It does pose some problems, but the interesting thing here is you would think Ilia Topuria, he's kind of looked like the short guy in his last few fights. He's 5'7". Then you go to Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett's 5'6" with a 70-inch reach. So, Topuria will have a little bit of height on him, but an inch less of reach. So what would you want in a fight? Maybe the reach is the one that's going to matter. Most likely not, because we're dealing with someone who's so tightly wound like Josh Emmett that he doesn't really utilize his reach the best anyway. Kind of have to, he has to time you coming in on the counter. Yeah, let's go with Ilia Topuria. Maybe like round 2. Maybe even gets it done quicker than Yair. But I would guess more of a knockout than a submission, though a submission is for sure possible if you're submitting Bryce Mitchell, if you're just breaking Bryce Mitchell. But we know a few things about that fight going into it, like Bryce being sick or this and that, so that makes you second guess just how good that win was, but maybe that's the classic fighter excuses. Anyway, that's the last fight. That's the main event. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, comment. Just let me know what's up, how you're feeling, what you're doing, maybe even some input on any of the picks. Appreciate you. And I'll see you next time. FireSide Chat.